push it up, push it way up. And then a terrifying warning, you're gonna lose it. These were the desperate, final words of a highly experienced flight crew literally fighting an invisible, overpowering force just hundreds of meters above the ground. In an instant, a massive commercial jet was violently pulled from the sky, setting off a chain of events that would completely alter the course of modern aviation.
Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to this explainer, where we're unpacking the tragic, complex, and ultimately revolutionary story of Delta Flight 191. We're going to break down exactly how a routine flight turned into a baffling scientific mystery, and how solving that mystery forever changed the way we fly.
Section 1. A routine Texas landing, August 2nd, 1985. It's a sweltering 101-degree Friday at the massive Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. The place is just teeming with commuters, including IBM PC developer Don Estridge. And honestly, aside from that oppressive Texas heat, everything about this day feels completely, totally ordinary. Our aircraft is a famously safe Lockheed L-1011 TriStar. Up in the cockpit, you've got Captain Ed Connors and First Officer Rudy Price, two highly experienced pilots. As they approach Texas from Florida, they are doing absolutely everything by the book. I mean, they're communicating perfectly with air traffic control, expertly skirting around these large storm cells, and safely lining up for runway 17 left. They are cautious, and they're totally in control.
Section 2. The 47-second struggle. Entering the storm. Just about 180 meters off the ground, a warning of a little rain shower suddenly turns into blinding, driving rain for the massive jet. And what follows is a terrifying 47-second struggle against an invisible force. The crew realizes pretty quickly this is no ordinary shower. Someone in the cockpit actually remarks, "There's lightning coming out of that one right ahead of us." Then, completely out of nowhere, the plane experiences this inexplicable, massive surge in speed. To manage this and maintain the requested approach speed of 150 knots, First Officer Price pulls back on the throttles. Which, by the way, is exactly what he's supposed to do to stabilize a speeding aircraft.
But the very second he pulls back, the bottom just falls out. The plane drops rapidly, completely devoid of lift, almost like a giant hand is pushing it directly toward the ground. The cockpit voice recorder captures that chilling warning, "You're gonna lose it." The pilots react instantly. Push it up, push it way up. They slam the throttles forward, pushing those massive jet engines to maximum power. But the plane is violently rocking from side to side. The engines are absolutely screaming, but they simply cannot gain any altitude.
And then, an eerie, terrifying pause. Passengers later recalled that amidst the violent turbulence and the roaring engines, there was this moment of dead silence in the cabin. Nobody spoke. You could hear a pin drop. It was this collective gasp just before the massive jet dipped wildly and uncontrollably to the right, hurtling toward the earth long before the runway. Section 3. Devastation and Rescue. Highway 114. The jet plows into a field short of the runway, bounces at over 350 kilometers an hour, rockets directly across the highway, actually striking a passing car before cartwheeling into a massive, unimaginable wall of fire.
137. That is the devastating toll of this disaster. Captain Connors, First Officer Price, Second Officer Nossick, 5 other crew members, and 128 passengers, including Don Estridge and his wife, all perished, alongside Mr. Mayberry, the driver of that passing car on the ground. In just seconds, a routine Friday afternoon commute was transformed into a profound tragedy that shook the entire nation.
Yet right in the middle of this absolute devastation, there was a sliver of a miracle. The explosion on impact was so insanely powerful that it actually blasted the rear section of the plane backwards, away from the fireball. Firefighters arrived on the scene in under a minute. I mean, an incredibly heroic and rapid response. And from that smoking, miraculously intact tail section, they managed to pull 27 survivors.
Section 4. Searching for the cause. The process of elimination. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the baffling task handed to NTSB investigator Bud Lanner. He arrives to just absolute devastation. A perfectly functioning aircraft, flown by veteran pilots, just fell out of the sky. So he has to begin a meticulous process of elimination to figure out exactly why. Right away, Lanner is faced with a massive contradiction. Just moments before Delta 191 went down, a tiny corporate Learjet flew through the exact same heavy rain and landed safely on the exact same runway. Think about that for a second.
How does a small, light Learjet survive while less than a minute later, a massive, heavily powered L-1011 commercial jet gets completely slammed into the ground?
So, investigators had to be incredibly systematic here. They immediately started crossing potential causes off their list, one by one. Was it a mechanical failure? No. The wreckage showed the plane's configuration was perfectly normal. Did a lightning strike disable the plane, kind of like what happened to a Boeing 707 back in 1963? Or was it simply a tragic case of pilot error? They had to follow the data.
To test the lightning theory, investigators looked for a very specific piece of equipment, the static discharge wick. This is a small device on the trailing edge of the wings that redirects static electricity safely into the air. If the plane had been struck by lightning, this wick would be visibly damaged or just completely destroyed. But they found it in the wreckage perfectly intact, so lightning was officially ruled out.
What about pilot error? Air traffic control had requested the plane slow to exactly 150 knots. Was that maybe too slow for a safe landing in bad weather? Well, Lehner dug into it and found that First Officer Price actually helped write the L-1011's operating manual. He knew this aircraft intimately. If 150 knots was too slow, there is no way he would have flown it. Interviews with other pilots and the manufacturer confirmed it. The speed was dead on. There was absolutely no pilot error.
Section 5. Unmasking the microburst, the invisible killer. With mechanical failure, lightning, and pilot error all completely crossed off the list, investigator Bud Lehner turned to his star witness, the flight data recorder. Whatever brought this plane down left its final, critical fingerprints right here.
And the data revealed an absolutely shocking sequence of events. In a matter of mere seconds, Delta 191 was literally pummeled by violently shifting winds. First, it was hit by an extreme headwind from the front. Almost instantly, that shifted into a massive, powerful downdraft from directly above, and then finally, a devastating tailwind from behind. For Lehner, this precise, deadly sequence could only mean one thing.
It was a microburst. Think of it like turning a kitchen sink faucet on at full blast. The water rushes straight down and then violently splashes outward in all directions when it hits the basin. Remember that 101-degree Texas heat we talked about earlier? Well, that hot air rose up, met the cold, moist air inside the storm cloud, cooled instantly, and then rushed violently back down to Earth. It was the perfect, deadly recipe. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why a microburst is so lethal to an aircraft, happening in 3 distinct steps. Step 1. The headwind hits the plane, lifting it upwards and increasing its speed. This is exactly why First Officer Price pulled back on the throttles. Step 2. The downdraft hits, acting like a giant hand slamming the plane toward the ground. And Step 3. The final nail in the coffin, the tailwind hits from behind. You see, airplanes need a steady flow of air moving over their wings to create lift. That tailwind destroys the airflow, completely stripping the plane of its ability to fly.
What makes a microburst so utterly terrifying is just how localized and brief it is. Meteorologically speaking, it's a tiny phenomenon, a true needle in a haystack. It's a maximum of just 2 miles wide and usually lasts for less than 15 minutes. This perfectly explains why that tiny Learjet landed safely just seconds prior. The microburst simply hadn't splashed down yet. And while they're rare, the aviation industry had seen them before. They caused deadly crashes in 1975 in New York and again in 1982 in New Orleans.
Which brings us to the legacy of Delta Flight 191. How did this horrific tragedy transform our skies forever? The loss of those 137 lives was a watershed moment. It served as the ultimate undeniable wake-up call. The NTSB's meticulous work utilizing that advanced flight data recorder finally provided an unprecedented, crystal-clear picture of a microburst's mechanics. Because of this crash, the aviation industry was finally forced to heavily invest in Doppler radar, wind-shear detection systems, and specialized pilot training to understand, detect, and respect this invisible killer.
Today, those systems are standard at major airports globally, protecting millions of passengers every single day. So I'll leave you with this thought. The next time you fly through a turbulent summer storm and you feel the plane safely adjusting to the winds, will you recognize the invisible physics keeping you safe? It is a profound, hard-won scientific legacy built on the science uncovered from the tragic, unforgettable mystery of Delta Flight 191. Thank you for joining me for this explainer.
For more crash investigations, subscribe to the channel, like this video and share it. Tell us what to investigate next in the comments. Thank you for watching and stay safe.
Thank you for watching the Flight Decoder. Subscribe for more authentic aviation investigations. Like this video, share it, and leave your thoughts.